Hi, my name is Jan Libbinger. I'm from Bark Limited Organics. Today we're going to have a look at our worm farm and the setup of the worm farm.
Refresh your garden with the Bark Unlimited range of top quality organic products. Bark Unlimited Organics. Refresh nature.
So we've decided to create a worm farm for home composting. And this is ideal for composting all your kitchen scraps and making your own fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, and growing medium at home. So let's see what we've got in this kit, and we will just open it up and and you will find inside there's a manual, and this is manual in Afrikaans, and if you turn it over it's in English. And we've decided to do it in 2 of the 9 official languages because the worms don't understand the other 7 languages anyway. So if you page through the manual, you will see that there's the whole setup of the worm farm is in there, and it's got all the animated pictures to make it a bit of fun, especially for the children. And let's see what else we've got. We've got 2 little pink pots, and we'll show you just now what they're going to be used for. We've got our container with the worms in it, and there's roughly about 500 worms in here. And we've got a bag of compost, and this is the food for the worms to start the bin off with. And if you don't have enough kitchen scraps, you can also feed this to the worms. And then we've also got a container with worm chow, and this has got all the vitamins, minerals, and the grit in it which the worms need. Worms' digestive system works a lot like that of a chicken, and in other words, it's got a gizzard and it needs the grit in order to digest the food properly. Okay, and then obviously we've got the 2 black bins. You will notice that this bin has got holes in the sides at the top for ventilation, and it's also got holes in the bottom for drainage. And the other bin has got no holes in it. No holes in the bottom, no holes for ventilation, because this is the bin where we will collect all the liquid fertilizer. You will also see there's some stickers on the side, and this is to say that this is your worm farm. And on the other side there's a sticker to show you what to feed the worms and what not to feed the worms. So in today's video we're going to do the setting up of your worm farm, and that will be on page 1. And in our following video we will show you the second page is how to feed the worms and how to care for them. Alright, so what we need to do, because we're going to collect the liquid fertilizer in the bottom bin, we will take the 2 little pink pots and we're going to place them inside the bin with the open sides facing upwards. And the reason for that being is we're going to rest this bin on top of those little pots to create a cavity for the liquid fertilizer. If you were to put the pot upside down like that and place the bin on top of it, you will see that it most probably lines up with some of the holes in the bottom of the bin, and that will make the worms actually crawl out into the bottom bin. So we're going to place it like this so that they don't have space in between that bin and the little pot. So we're just going to place the pots in the bottom of this one, and then we'll put the second one with the holes in it on top. And then there's a couple of things that you need to do now. You need to get yourself some cardboard or newspaper, because we need to put a lining in the bottom of this top bin before we add the compost and the worms, so that the worms don't crawl through the holes into the bottom bin. You can use any old newspaper or cardboard boxes to cut up and place in the bottom of this bin. I thought it good to use some beer boxes. They're the best because you can have the beer before or after, and then use the cardboard box in the bottom of the bin. And we're going to place that in the bottom of the bin to make it a bit easier, and also to create a good environment for the worms. We're going to soak the cardboard in water before we actually put it in here. So what we'll do now is we'll get a container and we'll put some water in it. And then we're going to soak the cardboard in the water so that it becomes more pliable, and it will fit better into the bottom of the worm bin, and it will also help with moisture retention because the worms like a nice moist environment. They don't want to be in a dry environment. So we'll just take the cardboard which we've soaked, and we'll place it in the bottom and just press it down. And we're going to do about at least four layers of cardboard, and you can do even more if you like. But 4 layers of cardboard should be adequate. If you've got some newspaper, obviously newspaper is a lot thinner, so you're going to need some more newspaper. You're going to put in about, say, maybe 12 sheets of newspaper in the bottom. We're going to take some of our compost, and this we're only going to use to start off the worm bin. If you have enough kitchen scraps, you don't need to feed your worms the compost. Then the balance of this compost can go to your garden. And we're going to add about a layer of, let's say, about 5 centimeters of compost into the worm bin. And we'll just level it out like this, and you can see this is around about 5 centimeters. And we don't need to add more than that, because remember, we want to recycle our kitchen scraps. Instead of putting it into the dustbin that goes to the landfill, we want to recycle our kitchen scraps into usable liquid fertilizer and earthworm castings. So what remains to be done now is to take out our worms from the container in which it comes, and we're going to empty that out into the new worm bin. And you can see how many worms there are, and these are called red wigglers. And we're just going to spread them out a little bit like this. You can see there's a big ball of worms, so we'll just spread them out slightly, and they're very light sensitive, so they will immediately move down into the new compost. You can take a little bit of water and just rinse the container in which the worms came, because there might be some eggs sticking to the plastic container, or maybe even small worms, and we don't want to lose those. And like I've said, they like a wet environment, so you can take a spray bottle or a cold drink bottle like this with this spray cap on top, and just water it down slightly, not too much. We don't want the water to run right through. So this will probably be the only time that we're going to water this container. And the moisture for the worms will come from the food that we're going to feed them later on. And like I've said, the worms like being kept in the dark, and they don't really want to be disturbed. So what we need to do is cut another piece of cardboard, or you can take some more newspaper, and you can put that on top of the worms. And we also need to wet the piece of cardboard which we're going to put on top. This will also help keep the worms nice and moist. And we're going to put that on top. And you can see in no time the worms have already migrated down into the compost. Because like I've said, they're light sensitive, they don't like bright light. And we're going to cover them up just like that. And now we're going to give them a couple of days to settle, and we'll just put the lid on. And you can either leave the lid like that if you like for more ventilation. Alternatively, you can close it completely, which will help keep the moisture inside, and there's enough holes for ventilation in the bin. So we will leave this bin for 2 or 3 days, and then we will start with the feeding. So instead of a piece of solid cardboard on the top layer, we can also use either shredded newspaper like this, or alternatively shredded cardboard. And this we've actually cut up with scissors, but if you've got a paper shredder at home or at work, you can put some cardboard or paper through the shredder. You will notice this has got some ink on it, but this is water-based ink. And it's better not to use high gloss paper, because high gloss paper, the ink in the high gloss has got some chemicals in it, and the worms don't like that. So instead of putting a solid layer of cardboard in there, you can either add your shredded newspaper on top of the compost, Alternatively, you can use your shredded cardboard and just make a nice thick layer and spread it out like that, and then you can just every now and again just water it down slightly so that it remains nice and moist. The worms like a moist environment, and they will even feed on the newspaper and also on the cardboard. You will also see on page 1 with the setting up of your worm farm, we've added a paragraph to tell you exactly where to keep the worms. They don't like to be in direct sunlight. Remember, this is a black container. If you leave it out in the sun, it will go over 50 degrees Celsius inside, and the worms don't like that. They will die. So it's better to keep the worms in a cool place, preferably in a corner of your garage, or if you've got space in the kitchen. This won't smell, but if mommy doesn't like it in the kitchen, it's better to keep it in the garage. So to keep ants from getting into your worm farm, you can place your worm farm on a table, but make sure that you've got 4 trays of water which you can put the feet of the table into, and you can place some bricks in the water and put the table's feet on top of those bricks. Otherwise, if it's a metal table, the table's feet might rust, and if it's a wooden table, it's obviously going to rot. So if the water is in the trays, the ants won't be able to climb up the legs of the table and get into your worm farm. Also make sure that the table is not standing right next to a wall, because the ants might crawl up the wall and get into the worm farm. So this is how easy it is to set up your worm farm. Make your own liquid fertilizer and also the earthworm casting. You can order your worm farm from your local nursery, and we will get it to the nursery for you, and once it's there they will let you know and you can come and collect it, because we don't want the worm farm with the worms in the nursery standing there for too long, because the worms are living creatures and they can get harmed if they stay in the container for too long. So it's better to order your worm farm, and we'll see to it that it gets there within a week.
Refresh your garden with the Bark Unlimited range of top quality organic products. Bark Unlimited Organics. Refresh nature.